Listen, I'ma get it. You know I be on the way. Yeah. You know I be on the way.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Fight Against Mediocrity podcast. Today's guest is none other than Lauren Davis Kartchner, my wife and best friend, my better half.
Hello, grateful to be here, everybody.
She is the reason the Fight Against Mediocrity is even possible.
I don't know about that.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Okay.
And then she also is the owner of Claymont Clothing. And so we're going to talk about that a little bit, how she started that, what it's like being an entrepreneur, married to an entrepreneur, adopting. She found out when she was 16, she wouldn't be able to have kids. And so we'll hash out a bunch of stuff on this podcast, and hopefully it's helpful for anyone who's in a relationship and entrepreneurs or just wanting to learn about marriage, whether you're married or thinking about getting married. Anyways, let's hop into it. So, Lauren, I want you, this is the question I ask all podcast guests. Tell us a little bit about your story and how you ended up where you're at. You can start as early as you want.
Okay, I would say I ended up where I'm at right now, probably because I married Kevin, who is very entrepreneurial. I don't think I was like that until I married you. Wouldn't you say?
That's true.
So I was planning on going
yeah.
I got home from serving an LDS mission in Canada, Montreal, and I was planning on going to Utah State University, and then Kevin and I started dating, and we got married. School at Utah State didn't feel right, and then I enrolled in LDS Business College in Salt Lake City, Utah, now known as Ensign College, and I was there for year and a half. Yeah, year and a half. And it was great. I studied interior design, and then I got offered a job to work as a full-time interior designer for a home building company, aka Kartchner Homes. My father-in-law asked me to come work for him. So I stopped going to school, was working full-time, and it was great. Loved it. And then, we had a weird little limbo where we started the adoption process, and we had a lot of interest right off the bat. There were about 4 birth moms that we were kind of like communicating with. The month and the month after we announced we were adopting. So that was kind of cool. So I figured, oh, dang, we're going to be matched sooner. So I need to quit my job. So I talked to my father-in-law. He said, yeah, let's find you a replacement. Once you get them all hired, you'll be done. And then, so I quit, and then none of those worked out. Everything happens for a reason. And during that time, I was just at home, and I was like, well, what can I do? And I was like, well, I've always loved fashion. Ever since I was little, I've always been passionate about clothes and shopping and fashion and design. And then Claymont was born.
Okay, well, that's not we'll go into the whole story.
But that's where I got to where I am at with Claymont,
true.
right?
Okay, yeah.
That's not the whole story.
That's the quick story.
That's the quick version.
So there's a lot that I want to talk about of all that you just said, but I think what's really interesting is, so when Lauren and I were dating, that's a whole story in and of itself. Should
we tell it?
Yeah, let's tell it. Do you want to tell it, or do you want me to tell it?
You can tell it.
Okay, so
okay, I'll tell it. No,
okay, you can tell it. So my best friend in high school was Lauren's older brother, and I'm 4 years older than Lauren. So Lauren was always like the little sister. Never really.
He was always the weird, geeky older brother's friend.
Yeah, the one memory I have of Lauren when I was little is I walked into her house one day, and she looked at me and she said, "Your hair's weird," and I just. Obviously,
tell him how it looked. Tell him what you were doing with it at that point.
It was like is it the helicopter, like the wings?
Yeah, it was Bieber. So it was the Bieber swoosh, and then
you
he had
love
the
Justin
wings.
Bieber.
Without that hair.
You gotta make sure.
Without that hair.
So, anyways, she got a call to serve a mission in Montreal, Canada, and right before, like 2 weeks before she left on her mission, we did I just mess that up? We went on a date. And it was really awkward, very awkward date. And we didn't think anything would ever come of it.
I think I gave him a side hug.
she gave me a side hug at the end of the date.
I said, thanks, Kev. And he said, you can give me a real hug. And I was like, okay. And then I went inside.
Can't believe you remember all that.
I remember that.
And anyways, then she got home from her mission and it just changed. And I was like, wow, she's really cute. Like, I really want to go out with her. And I would tell her brother that, and he'd be like, no, I do not want you to go out with her. Not allowed. If anyone of my friends are going to date her, it's not going to be you. I don't really know what he meant by that. And anyways, we ended up, long story short, going on a date. And as it got more serious, I remember we were in Ogden. We had met in the middle because I lived in Salt Lake. She lived in Logan. We're in Ogden. We had just eaten at Costa Vida, and we're in the car talking. And there's this list of 100 questions that one of my seminary institute church teachers gave me of like things that you should ask your future spouse before you get married.
What's it called? You
It's
should tell the listeners.
It's by brother Stephen Hunsaker. You can look it up if you Google Stephen Hunsaker. 107 questions. 107 questions, and he has a website and really good questions, things that you should talk about before you get married. And we were going through one of those, and I can't remember which question it was, but Lauren got really serious and said, hey, I need to talk to you about something. I was told when I was 16 I can't have kids. And I remember exactly the situation, exactly what was happening. And she's like, if you marry me, that's something we're going to have to work through together. And we'll probably have to adopt or do infertility treatments and everything like that. And so that was the first time I was aware of what we were going to conquer together in the future. And for whatever reason, I just felt very peaceful about the whole thing. It wasn't like I didn't get scared. I didn't get hesitant. I didn't get like, well, maybe I shouldn't date her. It was just like, no, this is going to all work out how it's supposed to. So anyways, do you want to tell the story of when you found out?
Yeah. Grab your tissue boxes. No, I'm just kidding. Maybe. So how much am I allowed to say?
What do you mean?
Like medical terms? Like,
you can say whatever you want.
So I wasn't doing well. I don't know how to.
These listeners are our best friends. You can tell them everything.
This is personal. You are going to learn a lot about Lauren in the next few minutes. So I started having my period at 14, had it for about a year, and then it stopped. And I didn't really even think anything of it until about 10, 11 months went by. And then I talked to my mom and I was like, hey, I haven't had my period in a while. She goes, oh, that's really weird. Let's go to the doctor. So we went to the doctor, and just a lot of weird things happened in that time frame. I was not sleeping well. I was sweating profusely. Like, I was the only kid in my class that would like be sweating, and I'd look around and no one else would be sweating. And so I was like, what is going on? Am I anxious? Am I like and I was like sick to my stomach, and I just didn't feel good. And this went on for probably like that 10, 11 months where I just didn't feel good. And I was sweating and I was just tired all the time. And I lost a lot of weight. My weight fluctuated a lot. So anyway, we're at the doctor's office. They're doing all these tests, taking lots of blood. Sorry if that's too much. And
that was too much for me.
And then they called us and said, okay, we have your results back. We'd love for you guys to bring Lauren in, meaning my parents. So they brought me in and we all sat down with my doctor, who was what's it called? A PA? Or she's like not the doctor, but she's a doctor.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know who I'm talking about?
The fake doctor.
She's not a fake doctor. She's a real doctor, but she's under, what is it called? I'm sorry, I can't think of it.
Physician's assistant?
Yeah, that's a PA. I don't know, but you know what I'm talking about. So, but her boss, like the doctor of the clinic, came in with her, and I was like, oh, this isn't good. And I know exactly, I can remember everything like it was yesterday. And I sat up on like the examiner's table, and then they had 2 chairs, and then the doctors were standing in the corner holding all these folders and papers. And they just start talking, and I kind of just zoned it all out. I didn't really know what was going on. So that's kind of weird. But or not kind of weird, but I just zoned it out. And I remember just looking at my mom and she started crying and my dad got really serious and very somber. And then, it clicked, that they had said, you have premature ovarian failure. And I was like, okay, what does that mean? And they said, your body just went through menopause, and it's not very often that this happens, especially to teenage girls. And they have no idea why. Super random. I mean, my mom got pregnant just fine without any help.
1 in 10 million, right?
Sure.
Is that what you said?
No, it's not 1 in 10 million. It's probably 1 in a million or something. It's just not very common. Most women go through this late 40s or late 50s. It just totally depends, but super rare. Anyway, so that was pretty much it. Then I got put on a bunch of like birth control and a bunch of different hormones because my body still needed them to grow and to function. And so I just, was on that. How's that for a story?
That is a good story.
Yeah.
And then to top all that off, when you were 16, when you were 18, you started having really bad headaches and turned out.
Okay, yeah, let me tell you this story. This is another
we're not
crazy
trying
story.
to make a pity party, just telling.
No, this is not a pity party at all. I'm very grateful that I have these different struggles. I think I was 17. I was going into my senior year and I could never wake up on time. I think I should have failed all of my first hour classes my entire senior year. And my mom's like, oh, she's just a teenager. That's normal. She just hates getting up and going to school. But I just couldn't. Again, my weight was still fluctuating a lot at this point again. So when I was 16, I'd lost a ton of weight. I was like 105 pounds for 5, 6, and I'd lost a lot of weight. This time I was gaining a bunch of weight. And I had horrible migraines all the time. Anyway, they went and drew blood, and because they thought it was like dairy, they thought it was thyroid problems, they thought it was diabetes, and so they drew blood and they're like, no, everything looks fine. And then they said, try cutting out dairy. Still, I was sick. They said, try cutting out wheat and gluten. And then I felt amazing. And it took did you know it takes a full 6 weeks for gluten and wheat to fully leave your body and not be in there. And it's not that necessarily that like my body can't process it. It's harder for my body to process, but it's something in the chemical that hurts my brain. Like it hurts so bad. And I just get really bad headaches. And so if I were to stand up right now and I had been eating gluten, I could feel my brain back here or like this. I can feel it hitting my skull and it just throbs and pounds really bad. So because then I couldn't work out. I couldn't do anything because it just throbs whenever I move. I'm just very sensitive to light and stuff. That was a long version. Sorry.
No, you're good. So, like Lauren said, when we first got married, we really, really wanted to have a family. A lot of couples are like, hey, we want to wait. We want to have fun. We were like, no, we want to start a family.
Well, because we knew it would take a while. I think that was one of the reasons.
Yeah.
We knew we would need help. So we were like, let's get going.
And so we did infertility treatments for a year. Hormone therapy.
Awful.
It was not fun. Lauren was on these tons of hormones our first year of marriage. And they say
first year of marriage is already hard enough, people.
Yeah, they say the first year of marriage is the hardest. Add in hormones to that. Give that a whirl. I don't remember it being horrible. I mean, maybe that's why. Lauren always says she hates our first apartment. I don't think it was that bad, but maybe it was because of that you hate it so much.
We fought all the time, but I was crazy. I was not myself. Maybe I was.
I think part of it is just, I remember we would fight over the silliest things. Like I cooked my eggs different than you. And even like today I was thinking about what was I cooking? And I was like, I remember when we used to fight about this. Rice. Oh yeah. What else? I can't remember.
Lots of things.
Just like a bunch of silly stuff.
I would just blow up over nothing. Hormones, man.
Anyway, so we knew we needed to adopt. Well, I guess we knew we really wanted to adopt. There's a whole story behind that. I guess you want to tell the fast version of why adoption was such a cool, or like a.
I guess ever since I was 16, I'd always thought about it, and I was like, adoption, just that's so cool. You know, there's people out there that physically can't provide the life that they want for some of these children, and maybe they can and they just don't want to be parents yet. There's a spectrum of reasons. And so I just thought, oh, that was really cool. And then while serving my mission, it felt like I had all the companions that had a tie to adoption, whether they were adopted or they had siblings in their family or they had done foster care. So I learned a lot about it while serving a mission. And then I came home and it was just like, this is our first option, you know, because having kids on our own wasn't an option. So that just felt like the first option.
Yeah. And if for those of you who aren't aware, when you serve a mission for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, you're in a companionship. So there's two of you who are teaching and sharing the gospel of Jesus Christ. And I didn't have any companions who were adopted or anything like that. So it's very uncommon. And I had never even thought about adoption. I have cousins who are adopted, but just never even crossed my mind. And the more so when we first got married, Lauren had told me, hey, it's going to cost around $50,000 to $60,000 to adopt. And at the time I was making $60,000 as an accountant. And I had worked there for 10 months before we got married, and I was single. My rent was like $500. And I really didn't like do anything crazy. I didn't have a car payment. I saved pretty much everything besides, rent. I paid for food, went out to eat every once in a while, and gas. And like, other than that, I was on my parents' insurance, and I tried to save everything I could, but I only saved about like $10,000 in 10 months. And so if you look at that, it would have taken us like 50 to 60 months, almost 5 years.
What did you spend that $10,000 on?
Just to save up for adoption. And then when we first got married, I was like, I want to sacrifice and get Lauren a really nice ring to whatever. So I got a really, really nice 1.5 carat ring, and it was about that $10,000. So I basically spent everything that I just saved for 10 months. And that's when it was a little bit before this, but this is when it really started to click for me. Like, accounting, even if I liked it, which I didn't like it, it's just not going to provide the financial opportunities to invest in real estate, to adopt, to be able to travel. It just sucks to you only get 2 weeks off. And every time you get work off, a lot of places, I talk to a lot of people who are in this situation, they always say their coworkers and stuff give them a hard time for leaving. So it's like you stack all this on top of each other. And then in that time period, I remembered that I'd read Rich Dad, Poor Dad when I was 13. And I remembered in there, it had told a story about how learning sales is the greatest skill you can learn. If you can learn it, you can go anywhere, do anything, and you'll be able to increase your income. The harder you work, the more you get paid. And as an accountant, it didn't matter how hard I worked, I'd always get paid the same amount of money. So we were dating at the time, and I started praying every night for a sales job, which most people pray that salespeople will never talk to them, or that they'll never have to do sales, or never ask anyone for money. And here I was praying for it every night for 7 days. And on the 7th day, Lauren and I went to brunch at a place in South Jordan, Utah, and ran into one of my neighbors who was hiring for salespeople. Long story short, 2 weeks later, I quit my job and started doing sales. And this wasn't like you come in and they have like a list of people for you to call and everything. It was a startup. So they were like, hey, do you have a phone? I was like, yeah, I have a phone. They're like, do you have Google? I'm like, yeah, I have Google. They're like, okay, just start calling business owners. I'm like, what? They're like, okay, see you, bye. And that's how it was. And looking back at it now, I can joke about it, but in the moment, I didn't really know what to expect. And so I just took it and ran with it and didn't, anyways, I'll tell like the story of how I did, but I'm curious from your standpoint, Lauren, when that was all going on, like you said, entrepreneurship and sales wasn't really something that you'd grown up with. When I said, hey, I'm going to quit my stable 9 to 5 and go do sales where I don't know if I'm going to get paid, what was going through your mind? And we were not even married yet. Like, what was going through your mind?
My dad worked at Baylor College of Medicine in the administrative office, and then at Utah State also in the administrative office. So he had that steady 9 to 5. income coming in. And so when Kevin said, oh, I want to go do this, I'm like, well, I don't have that much saved up. Like, I've been working 3 jobs, but they don't pay super great. And so that was really scary. And then we start looking at places. This is hilarious. We start looking at places to live. And we go to Brickyard. Where's that at?
In Salt Lake.
If you know where that's at, in Salt Lake. We're looking at an apartment there. We're looking at a studio apartment. And how much was it? I can't even remember.
I think it was like all in, it probably would have been like $1,300 or $1,400 a month.
And we were like, no, we can't do it. Like, we can't pay that for a studio. We need at least a 1-bedroom with a separate kitchen, and we need like something, you know. And oh man, I just remember
That's
thinking,
crazy looking back.
yeah, like how could we pay for that? It was crazy. So I was scared. And Kevin had just gotten me hired on at the same place he was working as, or not. He didn't, but he got me the interview and I got the job on my own. But
the place that I had just quit.
The place he had just quit, I was working as the front desk secretary. So I was not making, I was making enough, but not a lot. So I was scared. I was scared.
Yeah, well, what were you feeling?
Okay, well, one reason I married Kevin is because I always felt safe. So I knew it was going to work out. If anything, Kevin could just go get another job being an accountant. We had something to fall back on, so I wasn't really scared. And I knew he was not happy. He loved the people he worked with. So that was really hard for him to quit, but he just didn't like doing accounting. And I just remember thinking, okay. Like when we were at breakfast with this guy, I'm sitting there thinking, what is he talking? Like, he's never really showed interest before in front of me that he likes sales. So that was kind of new to me, but I knew that it would all work out. I really did. Because I always felt safe with him. Still do.
I love that. That's why I'm pushing you a little bit, because I know there's parts of the stories that we've never really talked about before.
Yeah, that's one.
And I didn't know that when we were at breakfast, you were like, what? So that's why I'm saying, because it's true. Like,
well, I just didn't even listen to half the conversation. And then because I'm talking to somebody else, and then I'm like, wait, is he talking about a job? And then Roger's like, yeah, come, or the person, sorry, maybe I should bleep that out. Was like, come meet with me or something at another time. I'm like, oh, Kevin's serious about this. I didn't know that.
And so like the first 3 weeks, I didn't make any money. And I remember distinctly having a thought sitting there at my desk in South Jordan at this new sales job, cold calling business owners every day, 50 to 70 business owners every day, thinking, I haven't made a single sale. If I don't figure this out, we don't have a place to live. We'll have to move back in with one of our parents. Like, I have to figure this out. In those first few weeks, when I'd come home every night and I remember you would ask, like, did you get a sale? Did you get a sale? What was going through your mind during that time period?
We were eating pretty simple dishes. We didn't eat out a lot.
Eating out for us at that time was like, should
wow.
we splurge and go to Costa Vida? Because it was like $20 for both of us.
Yeah. I just remember going and getting groceries at Smith's that one time. Do you remember? Smith's was just down like a mile from our house. And yeah, we loaded everything into our car. And I was just like, well, this has to last us for a couple of weeks. And of course our moms were like, get your food storage. I'm like, we can't. Like, oh, we'd go to Winco too. Winco was really affordable for us too. We would do that.
But you weren't?
Oh yeah, I was scared.
Why did you keep supporting me?
Because I just felt safe. I knew it would all work out. I mean, it had to.
That's true.
It had to work out.
So
I don't know. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. Long story short, I guess
I remember when you made your first sale though.
Yeah, I'm trying to get. I'm even trying to remember like the whole experience.
4 years ago.
You remember my first sale? I remember that too. What do you remember?
He came home and was like, I got a sale today. And I was so excited. I was like, yes, we got a sale. But yeah, didn't we go out to Tsunami to celebrate? Which is like bougie sushi. Did we do that?
Probably.
Yeah. I remember.
Anyway, so ended up
And
getting
the sale, how much was the sale for?
it was
like $2,000.
it was $2,000
I
commission.
remember that.
Yeah. $2,000 commission.
And I was like, wow, we're rich.
Yeah, no, for sure.
That's
for
what it
real.
felt like.
And yeah, so I end up, getting better at it over time. And by the end of working there, I ended up being the director of sales. And what was cool and what I really wanted to focus on is just like how supportive Lauren was during that whole experience. Because it wasn't like I didn't have any experience doing it. I would come home some days and be like on a super big high, like, oh my gosh, I just made a sale. I'm invincible. And then other days I'd come home after a few days of no sales and be like,
what am I doing?
What am I doing? This sucks. This is the worst. Why am I even trying? And there's one experience that stands out in my mind. So I started reading a lot. And before that, I had read books and sales books. But when I started actually selling, it became not just reading or listening, but actually studying what I needed to learn in order to be successful. And so I think that's one of the important things that happened to me is once I put myself in the situation and had your support, it was like, okay, now I have to figure this out. And that's why college is tough for me, because you're not putting yourself in the situation. You're just hypothetically thinking, oh, what if this happens? Where when you're actually doing sales or actually doing the thing, you really have to learn it. And I remember...
I'm going to interject real quick. I remember, especially when Kevin started and we didn't have a lot of income coming in, I would be like, we'd go out to eat or our family would ask us to do something and I would be like, we can't afford that. We can't afford that. And Kevin said, we have to stop saying we can't afford that because we don't want our kids to ever feel like we couldn't afford anything. Or we want them to feel like they have enough and enough, like whatever we have is enough, but also just changing the mindset of we can't afford it to we will one day, right?
How can we? Yeah.
Like, how can we afford it? How can we make more money?
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, keep going.
No, thank you.
I remember
keep bringing stuff like that up. And
now did you forget what you're
no, I will kind of. Anyway, so yeah, I remember one experience where I was sitting at my desk and I was like, okay, I need to figure this out. And I was scrolling through some social media or Google or whatever, and I saw a sales program for sale for $97 a month. And I was like, oh, this looks like a scam. I don't know if it's really going to work, but I'm like, but I got to try something. This is just like a Hail Mary. And so I remember clicking on it and taking out my credit card and being like, this has got to be a scam. And I start entering my credit card information. And then I get the email, hey, here's your login information. And for the next 2 weeks, I mean, really like for a while, 6 months, every single spare minute I had driving the car, at the gym, in between sales calls, like I would always be listening to that. And that's what, if you ask me anything, that's what really, number one, gave me the confidence and the knowledge of how to be successful. And so that's why I'm so passionate. We know we've spent over $100,000 on different self-development improvement. And one of the reasons for that is because one of my mentors, Darren Hardy, he says invest 10% of what you make into yourself. But he's like, that's like child's play. He's like, if you really want to do it right, he says, invest 10% of what you want to make. And so, we want to make millions. And so if you want to make $1 million in a year, you take that $100,000 and that's what you spend on self-development in a year. But I wanted to ask you about that, Lauren. That was something new to me because I'd never had the money to invest in myself. And so that first $97 was like, dang, this stuff actually works. And then it became, okay, let's spend $400 and go to a conference. And then let's spend $1,000 on this. And as we started doing that, what was your thought process behind, wow, we're spending all this money on self-development and all that?
I like to spend money, so I thought it was great, but I also was like, who is this Grant Cardone? I was like, who is this guy? Because Kevin was always listening to him in the car, and I would always fall asleep. And his voice just puts me to sleep.
And Darren Hardy's.
And Darren Hardy's. Wow, they both. Whenever Kevin turns those on, I'm out. I'm asleep. But yeah, I remember Kevin saying we need to go to GrowthCon. And I'm like, what is GrowthCon? I was skeptical. How did you convince me to go?
It was, I think how I convinced you to go is it was in Miami and there was a Aventura Mall right next to it.
Yes.
With the Cheesecake Factory.
And the hotel we were at was the JW Marriott down there. So it's super nice and bougie. And I said, okay, can I go to the spa one of the days? Like,
but then what ended up happening?
It was amazing. We met Jesse Itzler. Jesse Itzler is amazing. If you don't know who he and Sarah Blakely are, you're really missing out. She's my idol. All things family, fashion. She's amazing. Sarah Blakely. And DJ Khaled and I made eye contact. I saw him live. 50 Cent. Who else did we see live? Oh, Tommy Hilfiger. He spoke. He was the last speaker I heard. So it was a Friday, Saturday, Sunday conference. We only attended Friday, Saturday. And they'd had great speakers. The GrowthCon we went to in person was amazing. Who spoke?
2020.
2020 was amazing. It was the first event.
It was 2021. It was like the first event after COVID.
After COVID.
First big event in the world.
They had gotten like the special permission to hold this event, and there was only less than
2,000.
Yeah, 2,000 people were there. And who spoke? Kevin O'Leary and
Tommy Hilfiger.
Jamie
Foxx.
Oh, Pitbull. I was like, how can I forget Pitbull?
Stealth
Wealth. He's awesome. But anyway, so we'd had this. Oh, who were some of the girls? There was this awesome lady, Cindy.
Yeah, the one who sold her company for $1 billion and then bought it back. And then they had to give it back.
They had to give her the company back. So she made $1 million and got her company back. Billion. I'm sorry, billion. With the B. So it was an amazing conference. My butt was definitely sore because we'd been sitting down for 2 straight days. I remember that feeling. I was like, I'm gonna have flat butt syndrome. Anyway, so we are on our last speaker. People start getting up and leaving, because it's like dinner time. People are ready to leave. And Tommy Hilfiger gets up there. And Grant had just bought his house. So that was kind of cool. So like I went and stalked the house. Beautiful home in Miami. But he got up there and spoke and told his story. And he had said, he said this. I don't know if you remember this. He gets up there and says, who's here is in the fashion industry? And I cheered because I just started Claymont. I had just started brand new. This hadn't made a sale, hadn't even launched it yet, but I had started working on it, creating it, because this was in February or March of 2021, and Claymont wasn't until June. Anyway, or launched until June. But he says, who is in the fashion industry? And I cheered. I was like, woo, me, I am. And all the people next to us, kind of stare at me. And I was the only one. He goes, really? Are you really? Like he couldn't see me because we were, halfway middle of the room to the back, and there's 2,000 people there. But his story is truly amazing. And that really inspired me to just be like, Claymont could fail, and that's fine, because his story is he failed a couple times, but I'm just going to keep going. So that was like the highlight of GrowthCon. And then we met Jesse Itzler that night, and we went to Cheesecake Factory like 3 times. I don't think we went to the spa. Oh yeah, we did. And we got couples massages. We had to wear a mask while couple massages because, COVID. I remember that. So anyway, GrowthCon, I was very skeptical. Our families had no idea what we were doing. They just thought we were going to Miami for partying, because they saw Pitbull on my story. They saw DJ Khaled on my story. They saw 50 Cent at a club on my story. But we made amazing friends that trip, and I still am following all them on Instagram, and they still comment on their stuff, and they comment on mine. So great. I think that was a turning point for me. Sorry, roundabout, long way. It was a turning point for me going to this conference because we were around like-minded individuals. No one else in there. Maybe one other person cheered when he said who's in the fashion industry. So no one there was like doing what I was doing. Very few people were probably doing what Kevin was doing. We met a guy that sold jail bonds, but he had the mindset of growth. And that's what, all these other people, they were like us. And it was cool because our families probably think we're crazy. To this day, think we're crazy. So,
and
sorry.
no, yeah, no, that's perfect. That's exactly what I wanted you to say, because I think up until that point, you're right. It was like when I said, hey, I remember we were living in our townhome and I got a call from one of Grant Cardone's sales guys. And he's like, I can't remember what he was telling me, but I'm like, hey, by the way, how much are GrowthCon tickets right now? He's like, oh, you can get them for $1,000 each. I'm like, okay, great. I want to.
Shout out to Nick. Nick is the best.
Well, he doesn't work there anymore, but.
Well, he did. And now we're friends. See?
Now we're really good friends. And then I took action, and then I was like, okay, I'm going to have to convince Lauren that we're going to be able to do this. And that's probably a theme of our marriage that Lauren doesn't love, is she's like, you already did it right. I'm like, yeah. She's like, okay, let's do it. She's always
I know when I'm being sold on something. He uses all of his sales tactics that I hear him in here preaching. And so I know I'm being sold on something, and then I probably know that he already bought it. But already bought the course, or already bought all the books because they're coming through Amazon. Oh yeah, I bought this, by the way. That's what he says.
Yeah, typically I've already bought it. But there was one time transitioning. So like at first, when we first got married, I even like had this desire deep inside of me to start a business and do sales, but it was like very dormant. And so that really wasn't the person Lauren got to know while we were dating. Really, right? Like
he was constantly reading. You were constantly reading books whenever we were together and listening to, motivational things, but never like you would always listen to Lainey over that.
I told you I wanted to start a business one day, right? Though, did I tell you that?
Yeah, on our first date, because I had the cojones to say, Kevin, what are your goals?
What did I say?
You want me to say in front of everyone what your goals were? He said, I want to serve 10 missions with my spouse, and so in order to do that, we have to make millions. And he said that on our first date in Who Hut.
In Logan.
And I hadn't told him what my goals were. Remind you, I was a fresh return missionary. So of course I'm like, what are your goals? Where do you want to be in 5 years? Where do you want to be in 10 years? You were taken back when I asked you that. I remember your face. You were like this. My goals. Like.
Well, no, at first I was like, I think I said something, and then I said something, and then I'm like, do you really want to know my goals? Because those are things that I don't really share with a lot of people. And so I was like, do you really want to know?
I said yes.
Anyways. Okay. So where are we at in the story? I guess we're not really telling the story word for word.
No.
I was at that company selling, ended up being the director of sales, built a lot of confidence in sales because it was freaking hard. So most people, I was one of maybe like two or might have been the only one. There was two of us that from when I started about a year later, we're still there. We transitioned through probably 20 or 30 other salespeople. And that's one of the mottos in life is like, people quit when it gets hard, but if you just keep going, you don't realize the foundation that you're building for future success.
A quote that Kevin always would tell us when we were in like the fertility treatments or the adoption process is say, if it was easy, no one would do it.
If it were easy, everyone would do it.
If it were easy, everyone would do it. If it were hard, no one would do it. And so that's why we keep going. That's Kevin's motto.
Amen. If starting a business were easy, everyone would do it, and it would be the equivalent of working at McDonald's. So anyways, I worked there, and then my dad called me, and he's like, hey, out of the blue, I remember I went downstairs, walked outside, sat in my little 2001 blue Toyota Camry with carbon fiber on the side view mirrors. And I remember sitting in there, and my dad said, hey, I know you're doing sales. If you want to come sell homes, right now is a great time. And I didn't really want to because I wanted to go do other stuff for a little bit, but we ended up praying about it, felt good about it. And so then comes another chapter in our lives.
That was an extremely difficult decision. Very difficult. I remember it took a month of us praying and talking about it and going to the temple and thinking about it, because Kevin, he loved sales. He really enjoyed what he was doing. It was hard, but it brought him a lot of fulfillment. And he felt like, oh, I'm moving back to Cache Valley. We're going to be stuck there the rest of our lives.
Yeah, that was really the biggest thing is I thought if we move back, if we do this, that's it.
Yeah.
That's the end of my life. Pretty sounds depressing. But spoiler alert, I don't work there anymore. As you guys all probably know.
Spoiler alert, we're moving.
Spoiler alert, we are
Cache
moving.
Valley.
Our house is for sale right now. We're not staying in Cache Valley.
Does someone want to buy it?
Yeah, does someone want to buy it? And so anyways, we ended up doing it. And here's the part. A lot of people will say, oh, Kevin, it was your dad's company. Oh, you were given it, whatever. But what was interesting is I was being prepared and led because the sales.
Woodbury.
Oh yeah, that was cool too. So the real estate company that I worked for,
That you were accountant over.
that I was an accountant over, they what was I saying? Anyways, I was an accountant over there. It was a big family real estate company. And so I got to learn a little bit about what a family company looks like. Is that what you're wanting me to say?
Yeah. Well, I think that's huge. And then I also worked there. So I got to see it as well. Like the family company, on Kevin seeing it, I'm seeing it. We're just being prepared.
Mm-hmm. And then, so the selling that I did was 100% outbound. We had one person in the almost year I worked there that reached out and said, I'm interested in it. It was all outbound, which retrospectively is like the worst way to do sales, like the worst way to do a business. Like there are so many ways that you can bring people to you and attract people to you, but I just didn't know. And, we didn't even post on social media. It was literally 100% outbound. And that just goes to show that if you're good at sales, you can truly create your own economy. And so I went and started selling homes. And I remember distinctly, there was a day when we didn't have anyone coming in. And the other sales rep that was there was like, okay, well, it's a pretty slow day. I'll probably just chill in my office and do some paperwork. And I was like, what? Like, are you not going to go like cold call or like visit agents or like go out and outbound prospect or anything? He's like, what? And I was like, holy crap, they don't do outbound here. And so I took what I'd learned from outbound and tied it with the people that would come and want to buy homes. And I outsold everyone else almost by double. And that was why it's so important to do hard things and learn the hard skills, because everyone wants the shortcut. Prepared. And I was being prepared. And so,
and then we both ended up working at this family company. So we were
my dad's
prepared.
company. So we both ended up working there. Lauren quit because she felt like, hey, we're going to adopt soon. And then, I'm not going to tell I've told the story before of why I quit. I'm not going to tell that on this because I want it to be more about Lauren. But, when I quit, what was going through your mind?
We had discussed Kevin quitting for a while. It was something he'd been wrestling with. He would come home and he just wasn't happy. He was like, he was back working as an accountant, the 9 to 5. That's kind of how he felt. He didn't feel fulfilled.
But how did you feel when I said, hey, I'm going to quit?
So we'd been talking about it, and in the back of my mind, I was like, please don't, please don't, please don't. But I always said, I support you and I love you and let's discuss it again tomorrow. Let's not discuss it again tomorrow. But every day it was a recurring topic, and Kevin doesn't get emotional, but that I remember there were a few nights where he just cried. Kevin's a softie. Kevin's a softie in his little heart and his big heart. And he cried and was just like, I don't know what to do. I don't want to disappoint anyone, but I'm not happy. And then that morning he had a phone call with someone. Have you talked about that?
I don't know if I've ever told that story.
Okay, so he had a phone call, and then he called me, told me about it. And it was a very pivotal, very important phone call that helped him feel okay about moving forward and quitting his job and starting his own thing. And he called and told me about it. He's like, so I don't know. I might quit today. I don't know. Right? That's what I understood is what happened. And then 5 hours later, he called me and said, I just quit. And You don't want to know what I did. I pooped my pants.
I want to know. We want to know what you did. I want to hear it from your point of view.
I started crying. I said, are you freaking kidding me? We didn't even discuss this. Like you'd said maybe. We had discussed it. We discussed it for over a month, but I just started freaking out. I was freaking out. And I was like, part of my people pleasing. I was like, what is my family going to say? We're trying to adopt and you're quitting? Like, what? Where are we going to have enough money to adopt? Really, what are you thinking? That was like my main point. And then I said a prayer and I was just like, I married Kevin because I felt safe with him, and that's not going to change because he's doing a different career. Like I still feel safe. Still do to this day.
And what I guess one of the pivotal parts of the story is from going from 60K as an accountant to the top of me selling, I had 5x our income. So we were making around 5x that, $300,000 to $400,000. And what was really important during that time period is we didn't change our lifestyle. And I don't know if this is good or bad, but I actually didn't tell Lauren how much money we were making.
I fell out of a chair. I physically fell out of a chair when I found out how much money we had. He was keeping that from me.
I wasn't keeping it. It was just
he didn't want to tell me because he said, you're going to spend all our money. That's messed up.
Here's the thing. I was scared. I almost was like, I wasn't scared per se.
You were scared.
In my mind, I tried not to even see what we were making. And I just tried to say, let's just keep living how we were living. Let's not raise our lifestyle.
And me naively didn't ask, how much are we making? Where's our money going? It was just like, oh, we're paying, house payment. We're paying HOA. We're paying utilities. We're paying Hiram City. We're Did you have a car payment? We bought a truck, so we had that small car payment.
Well,
but
we had the Audi and then we had the truck, but don't buy an Audi.
Don't buy an Audi.
And so anyways, we kept our lifestyle the same because when I'd read Rich Dad Poor Dad, it said invest in real estate. And so one of the biggest reasons I quit accounting is because one day I wanted to be able to invest a couple $100,000 into real estate. And we did that. And that's another story for another time, but we didn't change our lifestyle. We put everything away, saved everything we could. And I
didn't know how much you're making. So it was probably a good thing you didn't tell me. I remember where I was sitting when he told me. I was sitting in the corner chair of our living room in our townhouse. He was in the kitchen, probably keeping a safe distance in case I threw anything. I'm not kidding. And he told me. And I fell out of the chair. I was like, what? And then I was mad. And then I was happy.
But I don't know. It was a blessing, I think, because I think what had happened is when I was my first sales position selling software, I had heard a story and seen someone who they always told the story, hey, I crushed it in sales. I was making this much money. And then he lost it all because he had a big car payment, a big house payment. He had all the fancy stuff, all the fancy dinners, and he just lost it all. And so I think in the back of my mind, I thought, I don't want to be that same thing. And I see that happen all the time. And so we saved. And that's really what allowed us to adopt. It cost us $50,000 to adopt. We have our son, Stanford, now. We adopted him this year. We invested nearly $500,000 in multifamily real estate. We have a townhome rental that I don't like because I don't like managing rentals.
Call Big Dave.
But anyways, it's I look back and I think, what if I wouldn't have taken the risk? Yeah. Because the accounting job is a lot. I hope none of you that are listening to this are in that position. I hope you already made the leap. But when you're in that position, you can say, well, it's risky. But I think there's more risk in staying comfortable than there is taking a risk. So that brings me to what I really want to ask Lauren. Sorry, what were you going to say?
I was just going to say, if anyone is in that position, but you feel like you're stuck because you're not feeling supported from a spouse, come talk to me. I love talking. I'm actually
I love that.
A really big introvert, but I would do it for you guys.
There you go.
Just for Kevin's listeners.
Well, and I think the reason I started the Fight Against Mediocrity program and what we do is we help business owners and salespeople increase their income, because that's really what it is. Now that I'm thinking about it, is because I did not know, literally legit did not know when I quit my accounting job what I was getting into, how to sell, how to market, how to increase my income, how to lead. I did not know it. And so I think because I was like, I knew so little and I had to push myself so hard to learn that is why I'm so passionate about sharing it and helping businesses grow, helping salespeople make more money, helping people improve themselves, because I had to do it from the ground up. And I saw how it blessed our lives. We were able to start a family, we were able to invest in real estate. And so, no, I'm not Jeff Bezos. No, we're not the richest people in the world, but we've had to go through the hard stuff to learn the lessons of how to increase your income. And that brings me full circle. So Lauren, when she quit her job at Kartchner Homes, because she's like, we're going to adopt, I have so much faith, it's going to happen in the next month, I have to be prepared. And then she quit and it didn't happen. And so she said, well, what if I go, I love fashion, I love clothing. What if I go buy clothes for this company? And I'm like,
because I knew someone that had just bought a clothing boutique, and I was like, oh, I could be a buyer for them. Yeah. It was on Black Friday. I had that thought. We were at Black Friday at their store, and I said, I would love to be a buyer for this person. And what did Kevin say? Why would you be a buyer for someone else's company? Just start your own. Boom. Mic drop. That's where it happened.
So that leads me to my question. When I said that to you, now you tell the story. Like I said, why don't you just start your own company? Then what?
I said, because. It's my favorite comeback. Because, Kevin, I don't want to, or I can't. Literally, that's probably what I said. And then I YouTubed everything. I Googled everything, and I was like, it's actually not that difficult. It takes a lot of time. And to start up with what I started, how much did we loan from ourselves to start Claymont? $5,000?
Yeah, probably like 5 to 10 grand, honestly.
It was 5. You gave me a very strict budget of 5. And it was amazing. That's all I needed to start. So, I mean, if you have the funds to start a little shop or whatever you're passionate about, of course I could have started with less. There were ways to do that, but he was generous enough to loan us Claymont $5,000. And
I mean, it's our money, so
ours. It was our decision, but it was a hard decision, like $5,000 is a lot of money. So anyway, YouTubed everything, Googled everything. I had talked about this idea with a friend of mine. We would go on walks, and she was amazing. We were really good friends. We would go on walks, and I talked to her about this idea, told her I was quitting my job at Kartchner Homes, looking for a replacement. And then I told her the story about Black Friday, and she was like, oh yeah, I've always wanted to do that. And I was like, oh, well, we could do it together. Like, we could do it together. And I was like, oh yeah, like we could. I don't know. I did not think about it a lot. And it was just like, oh yeah, let's do it. And it was great, but it just felt like we couldn't agree on a lot. And I just kept having the feeling, I think I just want to do this on my own. I kind of just want to do this on my own. And then I texted her. That was the wrong move. Should not have texted her. That was 100% my fault. I should have just been gone over, been like, hey, let's go on a walk like we always do. And just, I did a lot of things wrong. I was so imperfect of how I went about it. It's all my fault. But I had just said, hey, I really just want to do this on my own. Like, I really hope you can understand, and maybe you can start your own and do your own thing. But I really just want to do this on my own. I mean, we hadn't gotten that far into it. We talked about a couple different names of what we could name it, or how we could do certain little things, but we hadn't really started, so I didn't. But we'd gotten far enough that it really did upset her, and I apologize if you're listening for that. You're amazing, and that was all my fault. So anyway, fast forward, we're in January. I literally got on Canva. I downloaded Canva, did a free one, and started messing around with colors and stuff, but I still didn't have a name. And then the name actually came from, I was on Google Maps. I had searched high and low. I had used tons of different, I don't know. I just wanted it to be perfect. And it took me a long time to come up with Claymont. And then I was on Google Maps, and I was like, I served in Canada for a reason. Maybe this is the reason. And I start looking at Google Maps, and I looked at I found one of the streets where our apartment was, and it was just down the hill from Mont Royal. And I was like, Mont. I love Mont. Clément. And Clé in French, it's C-L-E. It means key. And I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. Key, like the key to everything. I don't know. But then I switched it to K because I liked that. I think it looked better. And it was Clément. So French, kind of. It doesn't mean anything yet. It means something. I'm going to figure out what it means. But that's how I started it. And then I just YouTubed and Googled everything. And it was hard. I was like, do I really want to do this? Because my father-in-law always says, what does he always say? When you start a business, you need to think about, the first thing is like, are you going to be in it long term, or what are you going to do with it? Like, how are you going to sell it, or how are you going to get out of it? Is that what he always says? He told me that. Maybe he doesn't always say it, but he told me that. He was like, well, how are you going to get out of it? And I was like, do I want this to be a 10-year business? Am I going to sell it? I don't know. So it was a lot of back and forth. But then I got on Canva. I had the name. I literally bought business cards that day. And I don't even use the business cards as my logo, which is so funny. I still throw them in the packages because I have them. I'm like, sure, why not? And then I just bought everything off Amazon, just small quantities and like packaging supplies. And we had an extra room in our house. So I said, why not? And that money, the $5,000, bought me quite a few items. I just found some wholesale, got my business license. I learned a lot about business in that time, and I couldn't have done it without Kevin pushing me. If you need a motivational pep talk, or you're not feeling good about yourself, call Kevin and he'll tell you everything good about you and what you should be doing. And he'll probably convince you to quit school and start a job, but it's worth it.
Quit school and start a business. Tell us about...
Oh yeah, that's what I mean. Sorry.
I've had 2 sales calls where they didn't even sign up for the Fight Against Mediocrity, but then they texted me a couple weeks later like, hey man, thanks for the talk. I quit my job. And I'm like, I don't remember what I said, but you're welcome.
Inspirational.
So tell us about the day that you launched. And I have a picture of that on my phone, but the day you launched Clément.
The day I launched was June 9th, 2021. I remember it. Wait, June 9th or June 16th? Oh crap, now I can't remember. I'm pretty sure it was June 9th. And I was so extremely scared. I talked about it. I'd set up an Instagram and went and followed all of my friends, all of my sister-in-law's friends, all of my friends' friends. So I was following a ton of people, and a lot of them followed me back, which I hadn't even posted anything. And then I posted a picture and everyone was like, oh, what's going on? Like, what are you doing? What are you up to? I said, oh, you'll see. And then I think the day before, or a few days before, I said, hey, I'm launching a clothing boutique June 9th at 5 p.m. and you can get on and the website will be live. So I had to make sure. My mom we had to test run a lot because I was so scared the website wasn't going to work or something just wasn't going to work. So she had to buy stuff and I'd have to learn how to ship it. So we had test runs for like 2 weeks before. And then the day we launched, it was it 5 p.m. or 3 p.m. in the afternoon? Because it was in the summertime. I don't know. I think it was 5 because most people at that time are off of work. And immediately we got an order 5 minutes later and then a few more. And I think that first day we had
like 10 to 15 or 20.
Yeah, it was like 20. It was more than that. It was like 20 maybe. And so I took him to the post office the next day and I had a conversation with the post guy. I was like, this is my first time. I just launched, a boutique and I don't really know what I'm doing. Did I put all the information in correct? Did I package it correctly? Did I weigh it right? He's like, oh yeah, you did good. And he was like, and good job. Like, this is exciting. I'll be looking for these packages to ship. And he was a really sweet old man. And it was very nice. It was very exciting. I just felt very blessed and I felt very loved. And I felt like all the hard work of 8 months was paying off. Just that first day. And then I would say I would get just a few orders a week. Not a lot. And that's also my fault because I wasn't marketing like crazy. I wasn't doing a whole lot. Just enough to keep buying new inventory and putting it right back into the business. We haven't paid ourselves yet to this day. And that's okay.
And I think this is important because I come from a family of entrepreneurs and I still don't feel like I get like a ton of like, yeah, this is going to work. You can do it. And so tell us about the reactions of some of your friends and family as you started your entrepreneurship journey.
If you're listening to this, friends and family, I love you no matter what. And your words of criticism really pushed me forward. I told my mom and she's like, that's cool. Like, what are you doing? And told my sister-in-laws and they were all like, oh, that's sweet. but I think everyone kind of just thought, oh, this is just for right now. Because that's originally what it was for. It was just for right then until we could adopt. Some of my siblings were like, what are you doing? Dad was like, oh, cool. Like, who's going to buy your stuff? I'm like, I don't know, but I'm going to figure it out. I did not graduate from college. And up until that point, even today, sometimes I still feel bad that I didn't. But then I remind myself, well, why was I even going? Was I going because I wanted to or for someone else? And so starting Claim On, it was like, I'm doing this for me. Like, I really wanted to do that. And I originally started it because that's another story of like, I guess I already told you why I wanted to start it, but I guess, never mind. Cut all this out.
This is not cut outable. This is basically life. So anyways, I just want to end this, and we may do a version 2, but I just want to end this. If you are listening to this and you're like, oh, I wish Kevin would ask this, or I wish Lauren would have talked about this, or I wish Kevin would have.
I'll come back by people's demand.
Yeah, she can come back by people's choice. And so if you have questions, message us, drop a comment, give a like, and we can do another one. But
give us the hate. I love hate.
Yeah, and hate for the haters. But I just want to end this by saying that none of this would be possible without Lauren and all of the amazing moms and wives and support systems of entrepreneurs and podcasts.
Or husbands and fathers who support their wives in entrepreneurial work too.
Totally, 100%. And so I just want you guys to know that oftentimes I'm the face of all the F.A.M. and Fight Against Mediocrity and everything, but it would not be possible without Lauren. She's always supporting me. She never told me no. We didn't get to go into the story, but when I first started my business, the first thing I did was find someone who'd done what I was trying to do, and I paid $17,000 for a coaching program. $18,000 for a coaching program. And she supported me. She said, yeah, let's do it. And that's scary. Like, we had the money, but it's scary when you're
that's a lot of
like just cut off your main source of income and then do that. But she had total faith in me and has always supported me, and I would not be here without her. So everyone needs a good spouse to support them. It's why God created Adam and Eve, to support one another, to help each other. So I just wanted to like bring Lauren on here and tell her thank you. And this would not be possible without her. And taking care of Ford, like she does way more than I do, because she's taking care of Ford, creating her business, supporting me. Like, she's so incredible. And last question, Lauren, my favorite question. What does the fight against mediocrity mean to you?
I hear this on every single one of his podcasts. So the fight against mediocrity to me is, personally, since I struggle with people pleasing, it's just like not being the same, being different. I got dreads last year because it was different. Dreads. Go look up on my Instagram. I got dreads last year because it was different, and I really wanted to show people that it's okay to be different. And I'm telling you this, it's okay to be different. You don't have to be the same as everyone. You don't have to think the same as everyone around you. You can go to conferences, and it's okay if your family thinks you're crazy. And that's what fighting mediocrity means. Just being different. Don't be you, be unapologetically you, and be the person you want your kids to be. Fight mediocrity, be different, believe you can do anything. That's what it means to me.
I'm going to tattoo that. That's
Where?
it. I don't know.
Where are you going to tattoo that?
Thank you, Lauren, for being on here. I love you.
Thank you. I love you too.
We'll catch you guys on the next episode. Thanks for listening.
Man on a mission, I'ma get it. You know I be on a what?